There are laws in the Old Testament, and there are modern day believers who will say, yes, we need to follow that law, but we don't need to follow that law. And people who are not believers will say, no, you're just picking and choosing whatever you want to follow. Look, I bet your shirt is with mixed fabric. Or do you eat shellfish? There are laws that were for that time, and there are laws that were for all time, and I don't think it's that difficult to differentiate. Yes, there are a few that we can argue about, but for the most part, it's pretty clear. Jesus made it clear to us when the Pharisees asked him, what is the greatest law? And Jesus said, the first one, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with everything. And the second one, love your neighbor as yourself. So when we look at the laws of the Old Testament, laws that pertain to our relationship with God are eternal. Laws that pertain to our relationship with our family and friends and neighbors are eternal. Other things are for other reasons and possibly for other times. For instance, there were dietary laws that were given. God told them that that would be so that they would get none of the diseases that the countries around them were getting. There was a level of sanitation at that time that is not like what we have at this time. And even in the New Testament, the dietary laws were revoked. There were laws of hygiene that were for the good of the people in that time. A doctor wrote a book called None of These Diseases, and he shows why those Old Testament laws were really important for diet and for hygiene. It was for a time. And another reason for some of them was to separate his people, God's chosen people, from the nations around. There were practices that were part of pagan worship. And some of the things like not sowing your field in two different seeds, not wearing fabric of two different kinds of cloth, were to differentiate his people from other people. Today, believers are differentiated from other people by our love for each other. That is, our love for other believers. And when we as believers squabble among ourselves, we are squandering that differentiation. How can I say this is the differentiation between laws that are eternal and laws that are cultural and maybe time-related? I read the Bible. I read it carefully. I studied it. So when someone asks me, do you eat shrimp in a challenging sort of way? I respond, just read the Bible. It's not that difficult. Get out of the deconstructionist cliff notes and read the Bible.